Some closing thoughts regarding the divine inspiration of the Bible. A friend on Facebook commented before I even started reading it that Arthur Pink turns thinking people into atheists. And I can see his point, if Pink's approach to his religion and the Bible was the only way to do so. And, this is primarily because of him taking his Protestantism and his sola scriptura position to a rather crude degree. Because in order for the Bible to have been inspired by God, according to Pink, because he refuses to acknowledge, that it's the writings which comprise the Bible are the product of tradition of various religious communities. Because he refuses to acknowledge that, Pink needs to believe that every single word in the Bible was literally dictated by God. And, he also needs to ascribe a historical and, even forensic veracity to the Bible, which it simply doesn't possess. It just doesn't. So, he immediately ends up placing people who buy into his message in a state of cognitive dissonance, because they simply, cannot recognize, advances in physical science, advances in archaeology, advances in biblical scholarship. It's simply not possible. And also something that's interesting to me about his position is, he wants to pretend that his position is an historic position. His particular fundamentalism, which is a reaction against the higher criticism and also Roman Catholicism, which he highly polemicizes in this book. He wants to pretend that that's not a revisionist position, and that this is the position which has been held all along. So in order to do so, he projects, his particular outlook, all the way back to the beginning of the world. So, he applies, his eschatology, regarding the end time. He believes in a rapture. He projects back his soteriology, the idea that people are totally depraved and, have to be selected by God in order to be saved, all the way back to Genesis. And it's just rather baffling that he does so. I've mentioned it in some response videos that I posted this before. He's living in this world of pure anachronism. But there are a couple things which he does do, which I think are very interesting to point out. The first is, in chapters 5 and 6, he kind of lays out this dramatic case that, all of these fulfilled prophecies are indications that the Bible is divinely inspired. And then goes into, detailed accounts of how stuff in the Old Testament, is, a type and shadow of stuff to come in the New Testament. It's very interesting that he does this, because I think that he does something, rather unintentionally, in the diligence which he does apply to pointing that out, is that, while he thinks that, all of these parallels which he sees in the Old Testament means that, the stuff in the New Testament literally happened, and that means that the Bible is divinely inspired, what it actually helps illustrate is that much of the New Testament writings, particularly the gospel narratives, have been constructed, out of this patchwork of stuff from the Old Testament, which is a Christian document. The Old Testament is not the Hebrew Bible, but because the Old Testament is the Greek translation of the Jewish scriptures, which have been read as oracular about Jesus, 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 Jesus. Everything points to Jesus. Divorcing it from its original context. And another thing which he points out quite well is that much of the writings in the Bible in general, but particularly the writings in the New Testament, are designed to persuade. And they're designed to persuade you to the position that Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. And he just illustrates that quite well. He illustrates that someone who has completely and uncritically bought everything that the writers of the New Testament were attempting to sell. He does that quite well. It's like the whole thing with the typologies. These are arguments which are being constructed by the writers of the New Testament, in order to persuade you to their position. They're trying to convert you. And he illustrates their devices quite well in that regard. So while I think that this book can be a particularly trying read because of the dismal and misanthropic view of mankind which Pink held, but I think that it points out some characteristics of Christian fundamentalism which may be interesting for outsiders to observe. But it was also interesting for me to observe them, because I used to think in ways quite similar to Pink. I totally bought into the program like he did. And I think that he illustrates well that the faith that he had is founded upon pillars which don't actually exist, and that a faith like his is worth discarding. I did.